Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. I have been back in my time machine. I came out to Egypt, and that's where I'm at right now. Um, and I found a good spot, I think. I don't know if it has much to do with our chapter today, but it's just a nice spot outside here, kind of in the farm part of the temple, just outside the walls, as you can see behind me. And I'll read out here. And I don't think it's going to rain. It looks a little stormy, but no worries. We'll get going here. So we're on chapter 15, the signal. We know that we got a little bit about in the last chapter about how Ch15 is so frustrated with Hatshepsut and the way she spends so much money just glorifying herself and taking tax monies from all these people, these regular Egyptians like you see behind me, working, and takes their money in taxes just to glorify herself. So let's look right now. Now he's just waiting. Ch15's playing that waiting game of when he has to go down into the tomb and rob, Thutmose I robbed his tomb. All right, so here we go. Chapter 15, the signal. But waiting was hardest. A day dragged by, then another, without word from the priest. Ch15 had spoken to Asher early. The diggers were arranged for and waiting, though they knew not what their task was to be. Nakonk was waiting, the beadle provisioned and ready to spirit the men away. The king was waiting for word, Mara waiting to carry it. Ch15 waiting in a torment of suspense to act. So this is the waiting game. And you notice that when he talks about spiriting the diggers away, that means, so the diggers are going to dig up the tomb, and they're going to be there when they rob the tomb. But you have to understand, people talk, right? They don't want anybody to know this. This is a highly classified secret. So Nakonk is supposed to take these men to another one of Ch15's homes, estates, and keep them there. Just hold them up, keep them there until Hatshepsut has been toppled, then they'll let them out. So, that way they ensure that nobody's gonna spread the word. For the first time in 6 years, the wheels of his secret life had ground to a dead halt. All plans hinged on one now, and that one hung like an unanswered question on the air, growing hourly more urgent. It was all Ch15 could do to grace the court of Hatshepsut with unchanged serenity, to behave as usual under the eyes of his household. Hardest of all was to hide from Mara the strain he was feeling, to parry her questions and then laugh at her anger. Each night she came to the inn for news, and he could tell her nothing. Their conversations were like duels. Rather than dreading the task which still hung over him, he now began to long for it, that the issue might be settled. Inactivity ached like a tooth. Soon after noon on the fourth day, restlessness led him down to the barracks of the Queen's Bodyguard, whose quarters and parade field occupied a large open area to the rear of the palace grounds. He found Khopra sitting on a hard chair in his severe and cell-like quarters, waiting for the bugle which would summon him to his afternoon inspection of the troops. Remember Khopra? He's the warhawk, the general who is training the 2,000 bodyguard, who they want to rise up and follow Khopra's commands to remove Hatshepsut from the throne. Come in, Lord, come in. The old man greeted him, waving to a second and even harder chair. Sit down and test the rigors of military life. Though I promise this is luxury compared to what those poor devils on the parade grounds yonder call their own. Aye, well, there's no other way to make soldiers of them. Hard chairs, hard beds, hard fighting. And a general as hard as they, suggested Ch15, sitting down. Khopra gave his soundless laugh. Aye, they look up to me, knowing I've slept on rocky ground oftener than they've slept on their couches. They're coming around, Lord Ch15. They're shaping up. Some day we'll have an army here, instead of a crowd of idlers. But I warn you, The old general lowered his voice, and his face grew grim. I've promised them action, campaigns, foreign battles, victories like those we knew in the old days, for the glory of Egypt. Take care that you produce them. Never fear, there'll be action and plenty once Thutmose takes command. By the feather, our empire's in a sorry mess, Hotkafra. Ch15 got up and began to pace. Every week a new dispatch comes in. There's another uprising in Nubia, a bad one, and an outbreak on the border farther north. Worse yet, the king of Kadesh has stirred up every city king in northern Palestine and Syria. They're banding together to defy us. And the queen does nothing. Our governors are going frantic. They need more men, more gold. They need it. So do I, by Ammon. Yet she's even taking what I have. Ch15 stopped. She's doing what? Reducing my forces, cutting down allotments, refusing to fill my orders for supplies. Did you know this? By the devourer, no. He listened with growing fury as Khofra explained. The bodyguard, normally 2,000 troops, had been reduced by a third even before Khofra had assumed command. In the past 2 weeks, 100 more had been dismissed, and the pay for those remaining was already 5 days late. Then about the helmets, Khofra growled. A week ago, I sent in a requisition for 200 archers' helmets of scarlet leather, well padded and quilted, with a good gold fringe. I needed 300, but some of the old ones will serve, though they be shabby enough. This morning, the requisition came back refused. Perhaps she means to send the archers into battle bareheaded? Something must be done. Something will be done, snapped Ch15. Now, at once. What of the regular army? Those not of the bodyguard, how badly have they dwindled? By more than half. More than half of the whole army is not there anymore because they're being ignored. Those not of the bodyguard, by more than half. And as for chariots and horses, Khofra threw up his hands. That will be the task of our prince, said Ch15. He'll build the regulars up soon enough, once we've set him on his throne. But to set him there, we need the bodyguard, full strength and well equipped. And by Ammon, we'll have it. Who rules on these requisitions? My lord Nahira. We know that name. That's Mara's other master, Nahira. He's the one that dispenses the money and uses the funds. My lord Nahira, master of armories and of the white stone house for linen. He of the face like a chip of granite. He doles out the pay too, when there is any. Nahira, said Ch15 thoughtfully, brother of the architect himself, a man to be reckoned with. Ch15 knew him only too well. It was not the first time that stony face had stood between him and his goal. He dropped into a chair. He's Senmut's right hand, Hot Khofra, and Senmut's the queen's. Obviously, she needs the gold elsewhere for some new extravagance. Was not her last one folly enough, meaning ridiculous enough? Snorted Khofra. I mean, the 2 obelisks, gods of Egypt. How does the woman conceive these things? Single blocks, unmarred by joints or even chisel marks. That was merely the beginning, remarked Ch15 dryly. He mimicked. The obelisks are mere dull stone and so unworthy of the daughter of the sun. I desire that they reflect, by my caw, he burst out suddenly. There's her need for gold. Did you know, Hot Khofra, that she is casing the shafts in electrum? Khofra's shaggy eyebrows soared. Those man-made mountains? Impossible. Aye. Our queen is fond of the impossible. Gold and silver over every inch of those monster slabs. I saw them at work on it myself only a few days ago. But this time, I'll wager, they're working up near the roof. and Egypt's treasury nigh empty. So they're using so much money to make those, encase those obelisks in Electrum that we saw in the last chapter, that they're taking the money from the army instead of paying the people in the army, instead of giving them the supplies they need. They're using all that money to pay for more Electrum and gold and all that stuff that's going on the obelisk. Small wonder she needs funds, money. Ch15 was on his feet, stalking about the bare little room. She'll not steal them from the bodyguard. Look, you, my general, it's clear how this came about. The queen fretting for more gold, the architect, as usual, scheming out a solution. Most glorious majesty, why feed and clothe 2,000 idle soldiers in a time of peace? Riffraff eating their bellies full at your Radiance expense. And it is my brother Nahira who holds the purse strings. Aye, he'll wish he'd held his peace. So now Ch15's coming after those two. Ch15 paused beside his chair, fingers drumming upon its back. A smile was beginning to curve the corners of his mouth. But what can you do? Put in Khofra. I can see the queen. I can inform her with the gravest concern of the bodyguard's condition. I can thank Ammon repeatedly and loudly that I discovered the situation before it was too late. You mean she doesn't know of it? Of course she knows. But my general, if I believe like one saving her from disaster, or if I behave like one saving her from disaster, she will not admit she knows. She will first try to find out what is so wrong with Senmut's little scheme. And what will you tell her? Ch15 smiled. Oh, Khofra. Her Radiance, the daughter of the sun, fears one thing only, the loss of her throne. Suppose it were suggested to her that Senmut's motives might not be pure, that he might have reasons to wish her bodyguard depleted, her protection undermined. She would never believe it, not of her precious architect, no. Do you remember Nessie, who commanded her great expedition to Punt a few years back? Do you remember Thuti, once Lord High Treasurer, and Nabiri, only recently Grand Overseer of her temple? Whatever happened to those great favorites of hers? Hot Khofra. Strange how they have dropped out of sight forever. So what he's assuming is that if he tells her the bodyguard is depleted and that ruins her protection, there might be a reason for that. Maybe Senmut's trying to get rid of her protection so that he can overthrow her and become the pharaoh. So maybe that's going to make her think, oh, why is he doing this? Because she drops her favorites. Every once in a while, you'll see if they don't do what she thinks they should, she might get rid of them. Khofra shot a sidelong glance at him. I know nothing of such matters, my lord, but I do know these men commanded projects close to her heart. She has never taken a moment's interest in her bodyguard. She is about to begin, retorted Ch15. I'll wager you a gold chain, my general, that an hour from now the palace bodyguard will have become the consuming interest of Hatshepsut's life, and Senmut an unhappy man. Khofra's skeptical old eyes met Ch15's across the room, and gradually the doubt cleared away from them. He chuckled, and as the shrill blast of a bugle pierced the silence, he rose, buckled on his quilted cuirass, and exchanged his square-cut wig for a leather helmet. I wish you luck with it, my friend, he said. I'm no magician, as you seem to be, but get me men and I'll give you soldiers. That I can promise. With a nod of farewell, he stepped out the door, which opened onto the parade ground, and joined the two aides who awaited him there. For a moment, Ch15 stood watching the ranks of copper-skinned foot soldiers file by the old general in the brilliant sunlight. They were few indeed. As the chariots bearing the archers followed, he could spot horses gone lame, damaged wheels, bare-headed men. Smiling grimly, he stole out of the building, across the barracks yard, and into the palace gardens by the nearest gate. When he emerged an hour later, it was with the jaunty step of a man whose time had not been wasted, so he was successful. He talked to Hatshepsut, and his plan it worked. He signaled a groom to fetch his chariot and stood savoring the fresh breeze and the thought of the interview just past, feeling more invigorated than he had for weeks. It was even possible he might enjoy Lord Merhab's party on the morrow. A bald-pated little man in the garb of a priest appeared suddenly from nowhere, cast an idle look about him, then, stopping a pace or two from Ch15, stooped to adjust his sandal. Sounds like the signal. Ch15's heart gave a leap, and the party fled from his mind. He turned back to the little man, but edged closer. He was rewarded by a whisper. "Tomorrow, the hour of the 5th mark." Bald Pate vanished, leaving Ch15 staring casually into the middle distance with everything in him in an uproar. When his chariot had arrived, he failed to notice it. Turning on his heel, he hurried into the labyrinth of palace gardens in search of Mara. Now that was from, if you notice, that was from Ch15's point of view. Now we're going to switch either to Mara or to Inanni or someone else, I think. "There," murmured Inanni. "That lamb is finished now. Only one more, and the shawl will be done. What think you of it, Mara?" At the other end of the garden bench, Mara interrupted her fascinated study of the ring on her finger to inspect the square of embroidery Inanni held up. She smiled. Inanni had worked a careful picture in colored threads, a green hillside dotted with lambs and a sleeping shepherd, with the square tower of a Syrian temple showing beyond. "It is beautiful, my princess, but not so beautiful as the hill in my memory." Inanni sighed and plucked another skein of white wool, from the work basket. After a moment, Mara rose and strolled down to the pool in the center of the tiny garden, dropped down on the soft grass beside its rim, and once more fell to studying the ring. Do you know what ring she's looking at? The one Ch15 gave her to pay for the transformation. Remember, back at Abydos? But she never got rid of it. She still has it because she had the scarab beetle that Nahira had given her, and that's what she used. So, she shouldn't have it. All right. So after a moment, Mara rose and strolled down to the pool in the center of the tiny garden, dropped down on the soft grass beside its rim, and once more fell to studying the ring. It was the heavy electrum band with the jeweled lotuses, the ring Ch15 had given her on the ship. She knew well it was dangerous folly to wear it, since it was supposed to have left her possession long ago, as a bribe for that quote-unquote friend in Abydos. One glimpse of it, and Ch15 would merely wait his moment to cut her throat. But how the eyes of those high and mighty palace servants had popped when they noticed it this morning. Mara grinned at the memory. It was worth a little danger to lord it over them occasionally, especially that supercilious butler who looked down his nose at her whenever he caught her slipping her sandals off. He would think twice next time about whom he snubbed, so he looks down at her like, "I'm better than you, you know it." She turned the ring thoughtfully on her finger, wishing she had given in earlier to the temptation to put that butler in his place, because when the butler saw the ring, he's like, "Whoa, boy, you really are something special." For already she was convinced that the ring bore some potent charm. All morning good luck had followed her, smoothed her way, made easy the most difficult situations. Think of this morning's audience with the king, if that was not luck. "Mara," said Inanni suddenly, "someone is coming. It is the young nobleman of the lotus garden. Ah, would he not be handsome with a beard?" Mara had swung around, spied Ch15 striding up the red graveled path, snatched the ring from her finger, and stuffed it into her sash before Inanni had finished speaking. So the ring is gone now. Now she rose, brushed off her skirt and with trembling hands, and sauntered forward as nonchalantly as she could. So she's nervous, and yet she wants to pretend she's not. "A beard," she murmured. I had never thought of it, Highness." It was all right. He couldn't have noticed that quick motion, and the folds of her sash concealed the hard little lump beneath it. She faced Ch15 composedly as he stopped before them, smiling. Princess, rejoice. His long hand moved from his lips to his forehead in a gesture of careless grace. I bear Pharaoh's greetings. Her Radiance inquires after the welfare of the Princess of Canaan. For the first time in 4 days, his eyes had come alive. Something had happened, Mara translated hastily. Tell him I am content, Inanni murmured. She is content. What is it, Chef? Tell me, for the love of Ammon. The signal has come. I have instructions for you. Say something to the princess. Highness, His Excellency wishes to know if Mara, Inanni was facing her, an odd, nervous determination in her manner. I do not want to talk to this young man, nor does he want to talk to me. Please, will you not relieve me of this burden? I have an errand elsewhere. But Highness, please, Mara. Inanni put a hand on Mara's arm and looked her full in the eyes. The summer house yonder is empty, and no one comes here. You will be quite alone. She snatched her work basket from the bench and hurried across the garden and through the gate, leaving Mara staring after her. What is this? Demanded Chef in a low voice. I don't know. Quite often lately she makes some excuse to slip away from me. I think she goes to see a Syrian woman in the court of the weavers. But it is strange that she would do that now. Mara whirled back to him, suddenly excited. No matter. Should we question when Ammon smiles on us? We're free to talk, if you want to risk it. She spoke truth. No one else comes here. Chef flashed a quick glance around the garden, then took Mara's arm and hurried her toward the little summer house, which stood at the far end of the pool in a clump of acacia trees. It was a light wooden structure, little more than a stone platform and a roof, but vines clambered thick over its 3 latticed walls, and its open front faced a little way away from the gate, so that once inside it, they could see without being seen. Mara sat down on a cushioned stool, looking about her with delight. All was cool green here, speckled with moving sunlight, little flakes and pellets of gold which shifted through the vines to dance agitatedly over Chef white robes and her own and the painted floor whenever the breeze stirred the leaves. Ammon smiles indeed, murmured Chef placing another stool where he could watch the gate. Something is bringing us good fortune. Mara, aware of the hard little lump of the ring pressing against her waist, was quite sure she knew what that something was. She thinks the ring is helping her and him. But she only said, it's been a good day for me too, or a good fortune for me. What else has happened? I've been longing to tell you. Bless Inanni for giving me the chance. We saw the king this morning at last. As you know, I've been trying for 3 days. Did he not say you could arrange for an audience whenever? Aye, but it isn't easy as it sounds. One has to find the proper chamberlain, tell him one lie, and Inanni another. Chef cut her off impatiently, glancing toward the gate. No matter, say on, maid, the rest of it. The rest was no easy task either. I had to give him your message somehow, with the room full of people. I know he sent them all away last time, but I suppose he didn't dare do that twice for fear of making them suspicious. They're all spies, Chef. How do you know that? From the way he glares at them, Mara shrugged. Skipped nimbly over why the room had not been cleared, a feat which she had herself accomplished with no small difficulty, and hurried on. Be that as it may, they were all there, and I had to think fast. I promise you, it was Inanni who saved me. She and the sketches. Sketches? Mara grinned, pausing a moment. Now, she's telling Chef about her meeting with the king, a different meeting where she had to give him the message of he of the fan and he of the feather are now in our house. That was the message Chef wanted her to tell Thutmose. But she had to find a way to tell it in front of all those spies. How did she do it? We're about to find out. I had the sketches. Where was I? I'm sorry. Okay, sketches. Mara grinned, pausing a moment to enjoy his bewilderment. She was relishing the whole situation, the secluded little arbor, the danger, their lowered voices, and most of all, her secret amusement at how different this tale would sound when she told it to her master, Ahira. Aye, the sketches. They were all over the table when we came in the room. Sheets and scraps of papyrus and a clutter of pens and ink, and they were all drawings of vases. Chef Tu's face cleared. Ah, the vases. They are a pastime of the king's. His hand is skilled with the artist's pen. So Anani was saying when he walked into the room, if His Highness has drawn these, Mara, then he is an artist of great talent. They are the most beautiful things I have seen in Egypt. And behold, there he stood, hearing every word. I know not which was the more surprised. Anani's cheeks rivaled the hues of her shawls. Sheftu was grinning. And was he flattered? By my caw, I believe he was. At least it caused him to think of her as a human being instead of a Syrian cow. For a moment, I thought he was going to forget and speak to her in Babylonian. And then, alas, for Mara. But he stopped in time and bade me ask her which sketch she liked best. Did he indeed? Aye, and she picked one, though she was frightened out of her senses and all her embroideries trembling. Mara pantomimed Inani's gesture, extending a timidly pointing finger and then jerking it away as if something had bitten it. And then, chuckled Sheftu, he laughed, as you might guess, and folded his arms, after his manner. Mara sat very erect, folded her own arms, and momentarily became the king, so she's acting like the king. Over ornate, he said, and a little vulgar. I, well being Syrian, she cannot help her taste. Tell her I will have it made up in yellow alabaster and delivered to her. My compliments. Meaning the drawing of the vase, they're gonna make the actual vase and then deliver it to Inanni as a gift. By Ammon, it is well no one but myself sees you mimic him thus, exclaimed Sheftu a little grimly. You might forfeit that impudent tongue of yours. You don't imitate the king. You don't imitate the pharaoh to be and pretend that you're him. You know how she did that when she stole the honey cakes? You don't do that to the royalty. Nay, I mean no impudence. I but tell you how it happened. Indeed, I'd not mock him, Sheftu. I was not but pleased by what he had done for my poor princess. Her face shone as if someone had lit a torch inside her. It has made her heart light all day, I think. You seem fond of this barbarian, Sheftu observed, leaning backward to peer cautiously toward the gate. It may be that I am. I pity her. She is so lonely and homesick, and so far from home. Sheftu turned, a mixture of amusement and impatience on his face. Do we risk our necks here to talk about the Canaanite? I would hear more of this lucky morning of yours. Aye, you shall, but I crave a promise of you, Sheftu. When all this is finished and the king wears the crown, will you send Inanni again to Canaan? Say you will. Her fate can mean naught to you, whether in Egypt or in Syria. She shall sail to the end of the world if you like, but proceed with your story. What have the sketches to do with you? I passed your message by means of them. His promise gained. Mara was willing and eager to go on. Aye, that was a bit of sleight of hand, though I praise my own wits. Remember the message? He of the fan and he of the feather have come into our house. Of course, I know not what it signifies, added Mara innocently, though she had figured out long since that it meant the queen's fan bearer and some other great noble, possibly a judge, whose symbol was the feather of truth, had been persuaded to swear allegiance to the king. But I wager His Highness would know well enough. I juggled the conversation with a skill that would have shamed Saur until, remember the juggler Saur? Until we spoke again of the sketches. Then I stepped forward, so impulsively, and snatched a pen and drew a little sign as a suggestion for some future vase. And lo, it was a fan and a feather beside a house bearing the king's cartouche. Very good indeed, said Chef Two, who had been grinning as he listened. A fine tale, and told by one who does not believe in ruining things with false modesty. I congratulate you, little one, on your cleverness, your sagacity, your... Oh, hold your tongue. Could you have done better? He laughed softly, shaking his head. Nay, perhaps not as well. I doubt if... Suddenly his face went stiff with attention as the sound of voices drifted to them from somewhere just beyond the garden wall. He twisted for a quick glance toward the gate, then sprang up silently and pulled Mara with him to the dimmest corner of the summer house. As they stood there, flattened against the latticed wall, the voices grew more distinct. The footsteps crunched on the graveled path. Looked like a man who had just seen a Ch15 face to face, one voice was saying. I do not jest, my friend. Some things happened between her Radiance, meaning Hatshepsut, and the architect, meaning Senmut, Nahira's brother. He didn't speak to you? Nay, he was in too much haste. He burst out of her chambers as if the devourer were after him, and went by me without a glance. I heard him snarling for his chariot outside, but I didn't stay to wave farewell. The climate's not healthy when he's in a rage. I hope he strangles on it, muttered the other. Last flood season, he took 5 of my vineyards for the crown property by royal permission. But I note his slaves are cultivating them now, meaning, Senmut stole this guy's his land, and he doesn't like him. He'll want the throne next. Hark to my words, 10 years from now. The voices faded as the two went out of the other gate. Mara drew a long breath and glanced up at Ch15, who seemed to have derived a great deal of malicious pleasure from what he had heard. Who was it? She whispered. 2 nobles who love Count Senmut as much as I, returned Ch15 dryly. Count Kepper, the one who talked about the vineyards. I believe I had best arrange a little conference with him sometime soon. Now look you, blue-eyed one, we must be out of here. I'll not be at the inn tonight, so you need not come, but tomorrow night. It is tomorrow that... Mara did not finish, but searched his face anxiously. Meaning, tomorrow do you have to go rob the tomb? Aye, he whispered. Tomorrow at the mark of 5. The messenger told me. It should be finished in 2 hours, if all goes well. If all goes well? She repeated bitterly. He ignored that. So get thee to the tavern by the mark of 7, or as soon as you are able. Is your Rashed, remember the guard, the sentry, still well bedazzled? So I hope. He's tugging at his leash. Aye, you'll have no trouble. One so clever as you, so remarkable, so sagacious. Oh, leave off. But her scowl faded as she stood there, laughing down at her. The sun flecks dancing crazily over his face and headcloth, and glinting into one jewel in his golden collar until it flashed like a star. I'll be there, by his leave or without it, she murmured. May the gods grant you will, Ch15. Take care, little one. I'll do my best. He guided her gently back to her stool. Sit here now and let the goldfish admire you a while. Give me about the count of 100. Farewell. He slipped around the edge of the vine-clad wall and was gone. Mara could hear his footsteps on the gravel path, calm and unhurried. She did not look up, fixing her attention instead on the fat red goldfish drifting lazily in and out between the lotus stems in the depths of the pool. It would never do to think of where he was going, what he must do before she saw him again, if she ever did. She thinks he's going to die or be cursed or something. By the time she had counted the goldfishes 3 times over, the garden had been empty for some time. She rose, went out into the glare of the afternoon, and walked slowly across the garden toward the palace. All right, that's that. So we now know a few more things. That was the end of that part, by the way. The next part, part 5, is called The Ring. The ring, that ring she was wearing just now, is the next part, and it's called The Gamble. All right. So now we know Ch15 is on his way to rob the Pharaoh's tomb, and that's going to be pretty crazy. So stay tuned. Tune in next time. I don't know if it's the next chapter or the next, but at some point we'll get to it. All right, guys. Well, have a great day today. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you tomorrow.